My name is Pablo Gutierrez III. We had a car accident, myself and a couple of friends of mine. Opened my eyes and I heard Marcelo, and I said, Marcelo, what happened? He said, it was a car accident. I said, no, it wasn't. It was a dream. It was all a dream. And my head was hurting, and I told him my back was on fire. And he said, no, your back's not on fire. You're all right. I said, no, my back's on fire. And I remember reaching to my head, and I put my hand into where I have now a scar, but I put it in underneath the flap of skin on my skull from the head injury. Um, at that point, I, I blacked out. And when I blacked out, it was a dark tunnel. I was in a dark tunnel, and I was being pulled out of it, like from the back of my shirt. And I remember at the end of the tunnel there was a bright light, but the bright light was not like I've been described before, where they say that you see the bright light and there's people there waiting for you. It wasn't like that. For me, it was I was pulled out of a tunnel and I was the bright light. I was seeing myself through what I call my soul's eyes. Where at that moment I felt I was energy. I was the soul. I looked down and the body was on the floor, and I even remember thinking in Spanish, pobrecito, poor little kid. And it was me. The car was there and the ambulance, I could see it coming. And I remember I started floating away. And I was thinking, what the hell? I remember trying to grab a hold of something. I couldn't grab a hold of anything. I was being pulled out of Earth. I was being pulled out of Earth. And as I went, I just kept going up high, floating away. It got faster. It became faster. I was being pulled away really, really fast. And I passed the moon. I passed the planets, kept going, kept going. I saw everything just get smaller and smaller. It kept getting pulled. And it was almost like if I was in some sort of a, a, a tunnel or something that was directing me somewhere. And as I was being pulled, I would see everything downwards, being pulled away from it. And I mean, now that I'm older and I know about science, it felt like I was being sucked into a black hole. And I went through this black hole, and it was darkness, all darkness. There was nothing else but darkness. And I wasn't floating like per se a bubble. I was in something. It felt like water, or I don't know, but I could feel floor under me. I could feel there was something, but there was nothing. Um, at that point, a man appeared in front of me, and his eyes were hollow, dark black. His skin was powdery white, and, white hair. And he just looked at me, and I didn't know I was Pablo. I didn't know where I was at. I had no idea what was going on. I remember this as just a memory, like a movie. I don't remember it as being there. It was almost like I watched it happen. Um, he just looked at me and said, "Follow me." And I looked at him, and I asked him where to. And as he walked, I was pulled with him. And we walked, and the darkness turned to a place. We were somewhere, and it was walked down this mountain. And as I walked down this mountain with him, it felt almost as if we were moving at the speed of thought. We walked, bam, bam. We were at this point. We were at that point. The next point, and I remember it smelling like fart, like poo, sulfur. And I remember hearing only on one side of my ear faint screams. And looking at my arms, I could see bugs or worms, really creepy something crawling through my muscles and through my skin. My skin was being fried off, burnt, and it would grow back, and it would burn off and grow back. And this happened throughout that path we walked through. We stopped at a point, and I looked around, and all of a sudden there was a city, a town, more like, not a city, a town, like an old ghost town, western town. And we walked through this place, and I remember looking over, and the town was there, but behind the town there was flames. And the flames would change the color of the sky. And we walked through this town, and people were looking out the windows, but nobody was out on the town street or on the sidewalks. As we walked through here, the man never looked at me. I just followed him. I saw the back of his head. Till this woman and this little girl, literally a little girl, she looked no more than 12, 13 years old, walk out of this building. And the little girl walks towards me. And this is the freaky part. The man put his arm out, and she flew back, but with the lady against the wall. And I looked at him, and I was frightened. And he says, "They cannot touch you." I didn't understand what this meant. At that point, I was like, I'm sticking to this guy. I'm not going anywhere else because he's got something, and he's going to protect me. We walked through this place, and it just kept getting creepier and creepier. The buildings were there. I now say that it was a town where the demons live outside of hell, because I never went inside of hell. I was not allowed to go into hell. And I know this now, and I know it was hell because he told me. He says, he turned around. We got to a point where we walked, and he turned around and he says, "This is as far as I can go. This time, I'm working for him. This is my job. This time we meet as friends. Next time we will meet as enemies." And I asked him, what do you mean, and why, what happened back there? Why did you push that little girl away? And he said to me, he said, "These people, they caused their pain, and they lived their pain, they died their pain, and forever they will be their pain." Don't know what that means, but they told me, he said this to me, and he looked at me deep in the eyes, and I felt him staring at me, but his eyes were hollow, they were empty, like looking up at the night sky, dark, dark. And he said to me, "This is not your time. You must go back, and you have to tell the people what you saw here too." And I don't know what I saw. I know I'm describing what I remember, but I don't know what I saw. And I remember at that point, he was looking at me, and I remember looking back, and everything behind us was gone. And when I turned back, he was gone. And at that moment, I felt nervous because I thought he was protecting me. At that moment, I remember for a brief moment questioning, where am I? What is this? And I was standing in a boat, a flat boat. There was a man sitting there, well-dressed man, and he just looked up at me and smiled. And all of a sudden, it was water. There was no land, nothing. We were in this boat. And when he smiled at me, everything turned white. Almost like I was living inside, or I was inside a bright light, a light bulb. And I heard something in my ear. "Come on in. What are you waiting for?" And it really, something inside of me said it was alright. It was alright to follow the voice. But I hesitated. And again, "What are you waiting for? Come on in," I hear it in my ear. Where do I come in? There's nothing. Literally, a bright, white light. And I think to myself, leap of faith. So I put my foot, set that one step, and under my feet I feel a brick. I'm barefoot. I look down, there's a brick under my foot. There was nothing there before. Then I think to myself, whoa, do I take the next step? And again the voice, "What are you waiting for? Come on in." And I take the next step, and I'm like, alright, I'm coming in. As I take the next step, there's another brick. and another. And every step I take in faith, there's a bridge being formed under me. And I remember getting halfway down the bridge, and I look over to the side of, and I see these balls of light flying in the water. Clear, clear water. And I think to myself, keep walking. So I keep walking across the bridge. Literally, the bridge forms as I cross it. I look back, and the bridge is there. Only the bridge. Only the sparkling water. I look forward again. There's nothing there. Just white light. A bright white light. And the voice. You're almost here. Come on in. So I take the step. And as I take the step, under my feet, I feel the grass kind of do this number. It grows under my feet. Really awesome. And I take the next step, and my foot again, the grass just kind of grows under my foot. And as I look down, I'm like, wow. And I looking up, and it's almost like it was always there, but I couldn't see it. It was a park. A really beautiful park, and there was people there waiting, sitting around, talking in different languages. And the strange thing was, is I could hear them, and I understood everything they said. And it wasn't English. They also, as I walked in, I would look around, and there was animals, there was people petting these large creatures, and then I'd notice that they would see somebody, and they'd stand up and walk towards them, you know? So I guess what it was like they were waiting for their family to come in and to greet them. And I kept walking. I noticed the man afar, and I knew that I was supposed to follow him or go towards him for some reason. He was talking with his hands and this and this and so on, and I couldn't hear him, but I wanted to. So I walked towards him really slow, actually, curious, unknown, but he was friendly. He was very welcoming, man. I got close to him, and he put his arms out. He says, we've been expecting you. Big smile on his face, this guy. He looked like somebody I could party with, man. He looked happy. I liked him just the way he was, you know. Didn't know who he was, have no idea what was going on at that point. And he says, hey, I'm so glad you made it. We have so much we need to tell you. And he just put his arm on me, and he said, let me, walk with me. And the group was with us. We were walking with a group of people, and he began to tell me. He said, look, what's happening right now, you need to remember. And you need to know that you have to go back. I didn't understand what he meant, but I listened. And he said to me, he said, your life will be a difficult life. Your life will not be easy at all. Your life will not be the same again. And he said to me, and made it clear to me, he said, but you can't give up. You can't give up, and if you need help, you ask us for help. You look to us and say, hey, I can't do this alone. And we will help you. Don't understand what that means. I didn't at the time. I didn't realize what was going on. And he said to me, but I promise you, you do what we ask of you, and your life will get better. At that point, I thought to myself, what do you mean my life will get better? And he said to me, before you go back, there's somebody that's been waiting here to see you. And this man, he was there throughout the whole time. he comes and he hugs me, embraces me, and my arms go down like this. And he says to me, "Mijo." And at that point, all my memories came back. I knew who the man was. He didn't look like the man that was here on this planet. It was my grandfather. My grandfather passed away when I was 6 years old. We were living in California at the time, so I didn't get to spend time with him before he passed. He'd call me. He'd ask my mom and beg her to take me back home, that he missed me, that he had a feeling something was not right. Finally, my mom said, "Hey, we're going to go back to Texas." And 2 days later, my grandfather died. I didn't understand what death was at 6 years old. So I saw him in the coffin, and I remember asking him to get up to go play with me, because every time I'd visit his house, it was, I'd go and play there. He was my play friend. My grandfather got hurt when I was 3 years old. He fell off of a roof, and he shattered his legs, a 3-story roof in Mexico. He was in a wheelchair. But he wasn't a paraplegic, he just used a wheelchair and a walker. And when we were kids, we'd take his wheelchair and his walker and pretend it was a spaceship, all kinds of stuff. He always let us do whatever we wanted. But he wouldn't get up. And I remember kissing him and saying, "Grandpa, let's go play. Apá, vamos a jugar. Vamos a jugar, apá." So that flood of memories, it all came back at once. And I said, "Apá." I knew he was. I knew it was my grandfather. He didn't look the same, but I knew it was him. And he said to me, "Hijo, vas a estar bien. Todo va a estar bien. Si te caes de rodillas, levántate y ponte a chingarle." And I was like, "No, papá, no. No quiero regresar." "No, hijo, vas a regresar. Necesitas que decirle a la gente que has visto aquí." He said to me, "Son, no matter what happens, you get up off the floor, wipe your knees up, clean yourself off, and you start that battle all over again. You fight. You don't give up." He says, "I love you, but you have to go back. You have to go back and tell the people what you've seen here." At that point, everything turned dark again, and I was screaming out for him, "Apá! Apá!" And I was angry and confused, sad, and that man appeared again. And he was laughing at me. Just, "Weakling, you're so weak." And he says to me, "You gotta go back." And I screamed. I said, "No, I won't. I'm not going back." And he says, "No, you have no choice. You're going back. And you have to do your job, just like I have to do my job. You have to go back and you have to tell the people what you saw." And I screamed at him. I said, "No, I won't. I refuse. I'll go back, but I'll never tell anybody what I saw. I'll keep that because you guys made me go back, because you won't let me stay with my grandfather." And he started laughing at me. He goes, "You don't know what pain is, but you'll find out. And if you don't do your job, you will be mine." And I screamed at him. I said, "No, I'll never do it. I'll never be yours. I'm not going to do anything." And he laughed again. Ha ha ha. And all of a sudden behind me there was a figure. And I felt him standing behind me. I looked back. This guy was huge. Huge. And I remember he just grabbed me like a little baby, and I was small compared to his arms. And at that point, I was jello. I couldn't move. I felt happy. He just looked at me, and the weird thing was he had different faces. His face kept changing and changing. And there was a face that stopped, and he smiled. And I felt peace. And at that moment, his arms got tight, and his wingspan, and I thought, wow, this is an angel. I didn't say it, but I thought it. And he didn't have one set of wings. He had 3 sets of wings on each side. There were 6 wingspans. Bam, bam, bam. And they made a cocoon around us. And I heard them. And it was almost like steel blades when they catch. And we dropped. We fell. And I felt it, man. You could feel. We fell. We fell. Like, I guess, like Satan was sent down to earth, man. We fell through all that I went up. We came back down. Boom! And I felt it, man. I felt that we were descending. And I heard when we went through the atmosphere, it was a burning sound, a shearing sound, and I was like, whoa. And all of a sudden, we stopped. And he looked at me, and his face again, it was changing, but it went back to the peaceful face. And he spoke to me in my mind, and he had a smile on his face. And he said, remember, tell the people what you saw. And I didn't say anything. I was paralyzed. I remember looking down when his arm spanned open. We were in between the ambulance. He was in and out of the ambulance. I mean, he was not matter. The body was there. It was Pablo, the boy. They had this syringe. I guess they were going to give me adrenaline or something. Whatever they gave me. When he went like this and my body started going down, when I hit my body, it felt like I fell out of the sky and hit the ground. Son, what's your name? I'm like, what's going on? What's your name, son? Pablo Gutierrez III. What's your family's name? What's your mother's name? I tell him. Odilia Gutierrez, Pablo Gutierrez Jr. What's the phone number? I don't remember it now, but I remembered it then. I gave it to him. A close relative, I gave him that. Bam, I black out. I wake up again. I'm in the x-ray room, screaming, my back's on fire, my back's on fire. The x-ray tech's like, son, I can't give you anything. We can't touch you, do anything to you until the doctor says so. My back's on fire, my back's on fire. And he goes and he grabs some ice chips and he says, please don't swallow it. I'm just going to wet your lips, okay? And he wets my lips and he wets my lips and I can see it in his eyes. He's frightened. And I black out. I wake up again. I can hear the doctors and my mother's screaming, my aunt's screaming, my mother's crying. The doctors are telling my mother, you need to have everyone come say their goodbyes because your son's not going to make it overnight. They put me in a drug-induced coma. In that coma, I had even more dreams and visitations is what I call them. When I came out of it, I didn't remember anybody but my godfather and my best friend, Todd Johnson. I never wanted to talk about this because I didn't want people to think that I was crazy. I didn't want them to say I was a Bible banger. I didn't want to be associated with freaks or people that saw God or heard a message or none of that. I just wanted to be a kid. I wish I could go back to football. I wish I could have been cross country. I wish I could have done my swimming. But I had to deal with the wheelchair at 14 when I would rather have been playing. So I was angry at God. A minister told me that God had punished me and taken my legs because I had received Jesus in my heart and I went out with my friends. That was a lie, but I believed him for many years. And now, 24 years later, I'm tired of carrying this with me. I need to be free from this message. I don't know who it's for, but I believe that it was real. I believe that I really did go to hell and to heaven, and I believe that I was sent back here to share this story. Though I'm frightened and embarrassed to speak about it, my life has been very difficult to live. I've had to be in and out of hospitals many times. I've had open heart surgery, bypasses. I've survived so much. Burns, breaks, cuts, mangled. And I'm tired of it. And I'm wondering if it wasn't because I kept my mouth shut that all those bad things happened to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but this is my testimony, and this is what I'm ready to let go of. And this story is real to me. I believe in God. I am a Christian. I am a Jew, and I'm a human. We make mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. Most of all, we keep on fighting, and I will keep on fighting till God takes me back. And when he does, I'll have a bone to pick with him, but that's between him and I. So, I pray that this message will help somebody. If anything, if you're feeling down, don't ever give up. I've been through so much, and my body always keeps coming back. If I can do it, you can do it better. Thank you.